Hello. Let's see. Let's add in. Too many options here. Where are we? Here we go. And then all. And somewhere in here, I can disable the waiting room. There we go. Tyler's coming in.
Oh, hello.
Howdy, howdy. Happy Friday.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
How's everyone doing today?
We're doing good. We're doing good. How about you guys?
It's Friday.
Yeah. That's right.
Welcome, everyone. Hopefully, most of you guys have been here before. Oh, good. Tom's here. Yeah, so what we got going on? Anyone got anything they're working on? Anything they need help with? Good to see you, Robert and Tyler, and whoever else is in the YouTube.
Hello.
Hey, Tom.
Hello.
I was just laughing, Tom, at some of the stuff you were messaging me with, just what people say. That's freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
I'd never use Autohotkey. I just use pullover macro creator. Like,
And I'm like, yeah, that's Autohotkey.
And then I export it and run the script. But I can't be bothered.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I can't be bothered with auto hotkey. It's too hard. I'm like, dude, you're literally using auto hotkey.
yeah.
One question I'll throw out there. Tom, you might actually be the guy to ask this. So I do play games. I have a script at home that I'll just keep running. I'm not doing anything to cheat, but I've found that some games will actually detect Autohotkey as a cheating software. I get kicked out. Any thoughts on that experience, ways I might keep stuff like that from happening?
I mean, honestly, there's not a lot you can do with that. There's a few things you can try. Play in window mode. For some reason, gets around it. Window mode. Control Shin tends to work a little better than like a basic Shin command. But yeah, after that, like I did a video actually recently, or not recently, like a year ago, how to make scripts seem more human. So add in like random, because okay, so if the software is detecting your script and you're doing like, let's say press W every 500 milliseconds, a human can't do that. Exactly 500 milliseconds. So you have to add like kind of like a random. So like random, between 400 to 600 milliseconds.
well, and control the speed, which I think is your point too, Tom. Right? Is
Yeah. Like it,
Now,
make it seem like human.
Can I ask you something, Tyler? Because this happened to me too. I was trying to start up a game, and even before the game started, it actually checked that Autohotkey was running, and it said like, we're not going to start because you have a cheating software in there. Is that what is happening to you?
That's exactly it.
Because and actually, I don't have an Autohotkey script for the game. It has nothing to do with the game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like I've got one to like change from like my speakers to my headset.
Right,
well,
exactly.
if that's cheating, then yeah, put me in jail. So yeah, stuff.
No.
Yeah, so it's really not while I'm trying to run it. It's like getting the thing started at all. And I mean, I haven't messed around with it. I could probably start the game and then maybe start the script, but it's just kind of annoying because it's just really basic stuff. So not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Joe, I think you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say, because it's also not just a simple, hey, I'll just compile my program that it's detecting, and then it won't detect it, because...
That's what I was just going to get at. So what you can do, this creates other problems, actually, especially if you're running antivirus software. What I'm going to tell you is going to create other problems, but you know what you're doing. The compiler that comes with Autohotkey that allows you to compile scripts, it has an option, one of the options that says compress. And it would use a different type of software called empress, which what it does is that not only compresses the script, but kind of like hides a few things about the script itself. If you do this, it might be that the gaming software might not detect that it's an Autohotkey script anymore, right? And especially if you change the name of the script to whatever other name that is not autohotkey.exe, right? But that creates the problem that then antivirus software cannot see it either. And they will say, hey, this file is weird. You have to be careful with it and stuff like that.
That's
But
what happened to me.
Right. So it is a trade-off. And the only thing that you have to do is grab your script, compile it, compressed, and then on your antivirus software, just whitelist it, and you should be good to go. But the Empress software, you have to download it separately from Autohotkey, because that compressor is not part of Autohotkey. That's a totally different software. So that is something that you might want to take a look at. You can play with it and see if that works. But I think that's the only route at this point, because it's not like you're using the software on the game and it detecting the script. It is actually before even starting, it actually says, hey, you're running a script. Like, I'm not going to even start with you, right?
Right, exactly.
Now, the other thing I would throw out there, because this should work as well, is if you could create a virtual environment for where you're running the game, right, that would be entirely separate, right? So if you could do that, that also might be a way to, if it's not too much of a pain.
Yeah. Cool.
You hacker.
Exactly. No, but I was actually really surprised. I actually was going to start playing a game a few days ago, and just from the start, it says like illicit software running, and I was like, what the heck? And then it just showed up, autohotkey.exe, and I was like, what? You know that I have this autohotkey script running all the time, Joe. You know, and I was like, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah, but a lot of people use Autohotkey to cheat in games. So
I was gonna say, I feel for them, right?
Yeah.
That from my knowledge from talking to like Isaias and Tank, that most games they can't scan your memory everywhere, right? So they don't have easy ways to really tell what your script is doing, and so they just say, screw it. We're if we detect anything running in the background, all right, you're gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Does anyone else have anything they're having trouble with working on? Incidentally, so I've been playing around with I bought one of these, which is, to me, it's a total ripoff because it was like $20, $15. I forget what I paid for it. However, and I don't want the feature. You can program it. So, I wanted just a small keyboard where I could select a button. This you can actually program, and I could take it somewhere else, and that key now has been programmed to do a certain thing, which I guess is cool. Personally, I just wanted to be able to have it trigger and then do what I want with Autohotkey. But I think it's pretty cool. It's kind of like the cheap approach to an Elgato Stream, or whatever, to have an extra key that I can really quickly hit to like launch Zoom, launch my share screen, or do whatever I want. Right? What do you guys think? Is it
does it replace one of the keys of your keyboard, or is it really additional key?
It's an addition. Well, you can configure. It starts off with stupidly being the 1, 2, 3 keys, right? Like, and Autohotkey doesn't see those any different. However, the software, you can configure it to, like, I have it sending the left control in 1, left control 2, left control 3, and then it's a distinct hotkey that I can, with Autohotkey, decide what to do. You can also have it trigger, like, sending a password, doing a couple other things. I don't think I saw it to launch a program, which is weird to me. Like, I don't know why they didn't.
That's interesting.
But yeah, it is interesting.
Joe, I've seen that taken to an absolute extreme, and it's awesome. He was a video editor on Linus Tech Tips. He actually has multiple keyboards, and the whole secondary keyboard was just it was his video editing software. It would apply that transition.
Right.
Very cool. He's had a few different methods he's used to make the secondary keyboard show up as something totally different so he can still type. But very, very interesting and very low cost.
Well, yeah, and that's the tricky part. Like this also, this is like $10 or less, and we've done a podcast with Jackie years back where we can show how you can detect it as an entirely second keyboard as well. Again, low cost, of course. Changing, putting a label or something on it so people can remember what they do. That's where the Elgato Stream Deck, right? It's the GUI on it actually changes for you, and you can layer it and have it react and stuff, which is really cool. But I think there's a big untapped market for people not really an Autohotkey, because we know how to do this, right? But we could build a keyboard, something that does a dedicated thing for a given program, kind of like what what is it? Is it Linus? I've seen that video and I've watched some of his other videos. He still talks about Autohotkey occasionally, but he left the tech support group that he was with. Anyway, but I was just thinking, would people really? It gets down to, I think most people don't want to program it, right? They're not like us. I'm not talking about people that use Autohotkey, right? But most people just want, I'll pay $50. I mean, look at the Elgato Stream Deck. Now, granted, you can customize those, but I think if we had one dedicated to do certain things and made it clear what the buttons do, then those would sell.
I just put a link in the chat for this $70 product called the Wheel Pad. So it's exactly that. It's for lawyers use it for something. I don't know what, but it's that exact thing. And to think, $70 for, what could be $10 just because it does special things that you probably can't even change is interesting. Yeah.
We had a call, remember what it was called, Isaias, with a radiologist,
Power Scribe or Power Scribe, was it?
Yeah,
the X keys.
There you go.
Something like that.
He had this keyboard, it was, I think, around $150.
Right.
And it's kind of they were blank buttons, but he's mapped them out.
He put some stickers in it.
Yeah, it's just, but again, like I already say, I can hit a button and launch Zoom, or I can hit a button and share my screen or start the recording.
And that is dedicated for that, right?
Right.
Which is the main point. So basically, in Autohotkey, what I usually do is just create a hotkey that will launch the program, right? But sometimes when you have many hotkeys at the same time and stuff, it is awesome that you have one button that is just for that, and it doesn't interfere with that. Especially, for example, and Joe, we have been talking about that, muting yourself in Windows. Windows does not have a way for muting yourself. Like, it doesn't have a hotkey for that. Just imagine that you have a button on your keyboard, and actually even the multimedia keyboards, they come with muting the sounds. Like, you can put yourself in mute that you don't hear anything, but your microphone's still open. But just imagine there was a button that you press and it would mute your microphone in all software, right? Just to make sure that you do not have the microphone open in Zoom or other app, for example.
Or to kill the webcam.
Right, exactly. So there are some people who, instead of learning how to do that, because at least what we have seen, muting yourself in Autohotkey, even though it's easy, right? It is a process. It's not just like one command, like creating a hotkey and that's it. But there are some people who don't want to take the time to learn that. They just want something that works, and they are willing to pay for that, which is the point that Joe was actually mentioning at the moment, right?
Yeah, I also Stream Deck, and I saw Brian mention the touch portal, which when I was looking at it, I first was looking at Stream Decks in general, and then they have an app, which actually I found very intuitive, very user-friendly. It's $3 a month, which isn't a terrible price. But it still means you have to have your phone there, and it's not the same thing as a tactile, a button you press, right? So I think it's great for power users, but I think there's a much bigger market for a much more focused thing around a given application. What I'm trying to find, if anyone has any advice other than like Alibaba and Amazon, is I want one of these, but not programmable. Because I think it's not programmable, that's why I think this is like, $15. I should be able to get it down to a couple dollars. Like if they can sell this for under $10, why can't they sell something smaller for less? But I can't find one. I don't know if anyone's seen one anywhere.
Joe, take a look at the chat. Just send another link in there from One Up Keyboards. This one, it's more of a DIY project. So I did one of these. You basically, they send you the PCB, they send you the transistors. You have to buy your own keycaps. You have to print, or you could buy a case. But basically, it is a keyboard. You use another program to basically assign that key to be, F13, F14. So it's not really, your average user is not going to be able to change it, but that's actually what I use at home. I mean, it was fun to mess around with. I spent probably $30 putting it all together. But yeah, it's kind of that same thing, but a little bit bigger.
I actually like that, just this idea that you just mentioned about assigning F14 to F24, because usually the keyboards don't have that, and to access them you have to actually do Shift F1, Shift F2 or something like that.
That's what I thought was ridiculous on this, that they chose it to be 1, 2, 3.
And not a key that is not really in the keyboard, right?
Yeah.
But actually, in general, I think for us, even in Autohotkey, let's say that you want to assign the key F14. How do you trigger that with a normal keyboard? I think it's Shift 4 or Shift F1, right? So F14 would be Shift F1. Is that how it works? I have never actually.
I've got a script that sends a fake F14. So I will use a script to write a script.
Yeah, but actually that is interesting, and basically, and this is an idea that for anybody who is dealing with this, we have, Joe, we have worked with 2 clients that mentioned this bridging thing. So they had a keyboard that wants to send a key. We want Autohotkey to capture that and then send it to another program. So Autohotkey is kind of like a bridge between the two. So I think if anybody's working with those type of things, usually it's a good idea to send those F24 or F14 keys that are not available on the user keyboard, but Autohotkey can actually detect it. I definitely think you can actually set F24 as a hotkey. And if your keyboard can send that and Autohotkey can capture that and send whatever other thing it is, then it is a little bit better for you, because nobody will accidentally press that on their keyboards. That's a very interesting.
I'm curious, because, and I really know nothing about it, but it just occurred to me, couldn't you imagine putting a Raspberry Pi between the keyboard and the computer and doing something with that along the lines of what you're talking about? I mean, I have no experience with Raspberry Pi, but it seems like that might be a way to.
That was when I was looking around for one of these macro pads. That was actually one of the first things I found. Was somebody had a little. It was a Reddit post showing how to use a Raspberry Pi to make your own keyboards, and just in searching around for that, that's when I found this One Up Keyboard site. But Joe, looks like you got something there.
Yeah, well, it's a Arduino, right, which isn't as simple. But they mentioned somewhere here. It mentioned a Raspberry Pi as well, and they linked to some other stuff. But it was still, but like, this wouldn't fly with a retail project to sell to people. Even if it had a cover, it's too small, right? You know what I mean? Like it needs to be bigger than that. But as a general concept, Robert, yeah, you're right. You could have something. But my point is, we have Autohotkey. Most people don't have Autohotkey, right? So they need to be able to program the buttons. We have Autohotkey. We don't need that. So I'm looking for something that's super cheap. But the problem is, like I said, with this to me, even though for us it's great, for the average person, they get confused on what the buttons do, right? Even with labels, like I'd be worried that they would, it negates the point of, like, if I have to read and look, it's not fun, right? It's not easy. But with this, I can remember, even if you have stickies, hey, there's 3 buttons, right? Like it's easy to remember what's going on.
Right. But this is, again, a very specific use case, right? Now, because there are some people, of course, that want to have an additional hotkey for a whole software, like DaVinci Resolve or something, and they have these specialized keyboards, and they need a lot of buttons. But I think your use case is just for people who just need, for example, in Zoom meetings, I just need to mute myself, turn off the camera, and stop the meeting. That's it. That's all I need to do, right?
Yeah, and the price is like $20, right? Like I could see that as going, wow, that could actually, turn into a decent product.
Definitely.
So thanks for all the thoughts. But yeah, if anyone has any idea of where else I might look for just a keyboard that's not programmable, that's where I was just struggling. Of like, I don't understand why I can't find it. Like, it doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to, of a concept.
That's exactly true.
Did you see the video link I sent with the keyboard? So every key is an actual LED screen. So it will detect, like, if you're in this program, switch to, like arrows or something for gaming or something. Yeah,
Where did you send it?
In the chat. I think it's like $1,000 freaking though.
I don't in the chat.
So it's the first video. Sorry, it's the first link in the chat.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, you don't have to watch it. Just like skip forward and just check out the keyboard. It's pretty cool. I always wanted one. That's like $1,000.
Oh my God. But that's the thing. Like the type of thing that we're kind of describing is really the cheapest solution. We're looking for something very cheap.
Yeah, this is not the answer. But it's cool.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
not gonna work on that.
Cool.
It's something you look at and dream of.
Let me put the chat in the Zoom. So let's see. So specifically the page I set up looks like a video switcher. Yeah, cool. I have this mouse. BTP. It looks like your link didn't come through, but yeah, and mice can be really cool too. I have a lot of buttons on mine, but again, it's which is fine, right? It's not for us, but yeah. But does anyone have anything with Autohotkey they're trying to work on, need help with?
I could just take a second to thank you and Isaiah specifically for helping me last week with the Spotify class the Spotify API. Finally, I found a solution with the tip that I got from you looking at the result, the JSON result. So finally, it was good, and we made a video, Joe and me, showing that. So thank you again.
Yeah, I can't stress enough that looking in Fiddler, it's actually, as Ace and I, we were having a problem. We're connecting to an API for a client, and their IT person doesn't really know what they're doing, so they gave us a screenshot of here's what you need. And honestly, it showed headers being blank and whatever, so we, every time we tried it didn't work. And then it turns out it was still adding a header behind, even though they didn't show headers. But if we had told her, hey, can you run Fiddler and do your API call and then show us what actually gets sent, because that would have solved our problem in a second. Looking at the actual traffic is just, there's nothing that beats it.
In my case, I didn't have Fiddler, but we just saved the JSON result to a variable that we could inspect, and then we saw that the result was there. It was just the way that I was trying to get the information. And in fact, in the Spotify API, there are two calls. One that is a general call to retrieve a playlist that returns only the 105 first tracks.
Sure.
But there's another call that is named tracks, and then you can pass parameter to get those after 100. So that was quite a simple solution when you understand it.
Cool. The APIs are a lot of fun, but again, the OAuth can be a beatdown of like trying to get it to work, but that's usually the hardest part. Discord, I think forums would be a good start. Here, question. Ask questions. So I see MX Wolfbane. I'm here to. I'm new to here. Sorry. Okay. I have questions. I'm trying to learn to automate video download from websites. Yeah, and it really depends on where you're downloading them from. There's some really cool tools out there like YouTube download, YT download. I think it's a Python program. There's some pre-built stuff, but I use the YouTube download. And then there's in Firefox. If you're not looking to spend too much time, there's a plugin. I'm trying to start Firefox. I don't use it very often, but I do use it for grabbing videos sometimes. And you can read about using FFmpeg for grabbing MPU8. Does that sound right? The extension? I forget the exact extension, but a lot of the streams are done with a certain extension that you can grab. But yeah, whoever, I don't see it right at the moment, but someone said the Discord and HK forums. Yeah, Chunji. Yeah, thank you. Is a good place to start. Definitely searching, and it just gets back to how often are you going to do it? Is it really worth automating the entire thing on your own? Video download helper is what I use in Firefox, and it has a lot of sites. But YouTube download uses FFmpeg and Python, if I remember right, to automate downloading from a ton of sites as well.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hi. So if anyone else has something more important, they're free to step in. About 2-3 weeks ago, I was on the forum here. Isaias gave me a suggestion, which I've written, but I'm asking a question about what could make this faster. I was trying to automate the medical database Epic, which is through Citrix. And so I have to use clumsy things such as looking for colored pixels to find the spot I'm in.
I remember.
And your suggestion, Isaias, about looking for a green pixel, and it's not in a constant spot except for the horizontal Y position. So what I wrote is a loop that checks about 60 Y locations for the green pixel. And when it finds it, it tells me that it has found it or not found it when it gets through. I found since the green arrow has a vertical thickness of 4 pixels, so I can make my loop have the index times 4, so it goes 4 times faster.
Right.
But it's still, since what the problem is, why it's in different vertical heights is because there's stuff above it that has variable width, vertical width. And so I put in a range of pixels of like, I think it was 250 to, it amounts to 250 pixels divided by 4. So it's about 60 pixels that it checks on each loop. And it goes as fast as I did as a human, and it never makes mistakes. So that's really nice, but it doesn't go faster than I did. In fact, I probably go slightly faster than it if I'm careful and don't make mistakes. It never makes mistakes. And I'm curious about, this is probably a low-level programming question of speed. Things that I thought about doing. So what I'm doing is a loop through the 60 vertical pixels. And I was wondering if I checked many pixels at once rather than one per loop, would that be any faster? I could,
Well, that's a very good question, but then you have to rephrase your you have to change a little bit what you're doing. Instead of looking for individual pixels, you can search for a whole image, which is exactly what you're mentioning in this instance, which is a group of pixels, right? So you can actually use image search. Now, let me explain. The image searching algorithms that Autohotkey uses, they are all really slow most of the times for most of the things. So even though I am actually surprised that you're saying that it goes as fast as you, like it doesn't go faster than you. Usually image searching should be extremely fast compared to you yourself doing it.
Well, it depends, though, if he's how well he's limited that search area, right?
Well, he mentioned two things that I assumed would made it faster. First of all, he limited it to a very specific column. Is that right? Like just one. So you first are looking just a specific Y location. That's the first thing. And second of all, you're actually grabbing 4 pixels at a time. Is that right?
Yes. So the total is about 60 loops, 60 iterations through the loop, 60 pixels.
So again, 60 pixels should be lightning fast. Yeah.
Why don't you, because the code, at least some of the code is in the chat.
I put my code in the chat.
Let's take a look at it, because often, Dan, what happens is people end up looping over things more than
what they need to.
Think you are, right? We're actually, that's one of the things.
So
there's a find text function, and the Shin's, search thing are both really fast. Like,
yeah, it is exactly as you mentioned. This particular code looks like it has a little bit of it has 2 loops. Well, it actually becomes many loops once you look at it. Let me kind of like explain. Let me share my screen real quick. So, just 1 second. The share button for Zoom just disappeared.
And Chunji mentioned setting the batch lines to -1 can help.
Right, that is one. First of all, Autohotkey already has a specific delay on each action. So
I would add fast to the end of the next. Fast, literally just fast.
You mean pixel get color, fast?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another option that you can actually try.
That's always like made it.
But let me explain basically the first issue that I noticed with it is that if you find the specific color, you go ahead and go to search again. So you go back to the beginning, but remember that you are already inside of a loop. So inside of a loop, you call go search 1, which actually initiates a second loop. Not sure if you understand. If you're
yes,
following.
I do.
Right. Why are you doing that?
Let's see. Why do I remember? I should have looked at this code a little more closely before sending it to you. Go to, let's see.
Hold
that
on.
line shouldn't be there. I should delete that line.
Right. Now, that particular line, I'm not really sure if you want it there. That's the first one, right?
Yes.
Now, if your original code has that, that might explain part of the slowness, because every time it finds that pixel, it starts a new loop. And that actually creates, let's say that it creates 10 loops. After it finishes with one of them, then it has to go out of each loop. And that actually also takes time because each loop has to complete too. So that actually...
I don't know why that's. I think that might have been a leftover from a previous attempt that I didn't notice was still there.
Now, another thing that I'm looking at is you do have a loop, but this particular code, I do not see a break out of that. Oh, well, here, the until here is the only thing that breaks that loop.
Yes.
So what happens is, if you start 10 loops, all of them will only break if this is true. So you have to be careful with this particular code. So just removing that line should at least give you something.
All right. And I do have the program does run and do what I want. It surprised me that it wasn't.
That's another thing that I see here is this leap 10 that you have there.
Originally, I had a long one in there because I do that.
Again, I don't think you need it. I don't think you need it.
Okay.
These 10 milliseconds don't look like much, but the problem is when you're in a loop, loops go extremely fast. Actually, they are.
That only happens if it's found the color, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's only if it finds the color.
So it shouldn't matter too much, right?
Well, but the problem is that he's finding the color several times because he's going in a loop and he's finding it 4 times, I assume, right?
Wait, well, actually, I was not intending to do that. If it's doing that, that was by accident. It only needs to find it once.
All right. And then stop it, right? Now, your stop here, why stop? When do you set it? I don't see anything setting that variable.
It's at the in an initialization section at the start of the program.
Whoa, hold on. Okay, so this is a number 750, and only if YY is more than Y stop. Actually, instead of that, I would do if the color is found, let's set Y stop to true. And this thing is until YY, until Y stop. That's it. That means if I found the color, I tell it that it is true now, and now this will stop, and I would make this to false instead. So this variable, the stop one, whatever it is, let me copy paste it just to make sure that I have it.
Well, I do want to have a greatest Y value. Otherwise, it's going to be searching even further down the screen.
Why? No. So here's the thing. Yeah, the Y value is going to be incrementing every time, and you're going to keep searching every time for a Y for an additional 4 Y steps, right? So that's not going to change at all. The only thing is that I'm just going to tell it that as soon, if I find it once, if I find that color at least once, I right away stop the loop. That's it. And I don't have to do anything else.
On some loops, it would never find the color. And that's why I had a stop value.
All right. So so you want a limit. I could usually, or a index equals or more than 750. You see what I mean? Let me just 1 second, please.
Can we talk about the how you just deleted the sleep and why? Because I think
I'm gonna be back in a second, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, thank you anyway.
So he deleted the sleep. I think it was like
yes,
10.
he did. Yeah.
Yeah,
and originally, when I was debugging, I had a longer sleep value. I do that just to make sure the program actually works.
Oh yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
So I'll put like a 5-second sleep and be like, okay, it did that step. Now it's doing this step. So yeah, no, I get that. But I think 10 seconds or 10 milliseconds is kind of
trivial.
Yeah.
Originally, so what I did was I didn't, well, just this doesn't matter why I did it. Originally, I had like 500 and or 1,000 for a second. I just deleted 2 of the zeros.
And I don't know if you know this. I could be completely wrong, but I want to say Microsoft can't handle very well anything under 50 milliseconds.
Yeah, and it's probably trivial functional significance anyway.
Do you know, Joe?
I don't understand your comment. What do you mean when you say Microsoft? What do you mean by Microsoft?
Just like the operating system, like Windows, send, all that kind of stuff, searches. I think it can't handle like under 50 milliseconds.
Oh, I don't know. I think it does. Autohotkey doesn't detect it under a certain threshold. You have to use different things to work with it. But
okay, maybe it's
we'll ask Isaias. I'm not, or someone else.
I know 50 is like some type of breakpoint. I can't remember if it's Autohotkey's or Microsoft itself.
I know when we build timers to measure under, I think it's a 1/10 of a second, then we have to use a different way to capture this current time and to measure when it changes, because Autohotkey is not that sensitive. I'd also say that, Dan, while everything you're doing here is perfectly fine, the find text function that I cited earlier, or which is a little more complicated, Shin's scan one is blazingly fast, especially Shin's version, because it uses the your image processor card, your card GPU, and it can work on things that are behind the scenes too. It doesn't have to be visible at the time, so it's really fast, crazy fast.
And that's a image search method.
Yeah.
I had imagined that image search methods would all be slower than a pixel color, but that's why I'm asking you guys.
Find text has been optimized. It uses like C-level stuff, machine code, and it's really blazing. You can, the first version that I used years ago didn't allow you to limit where you're searching. I'm like, this is stupid, right? It would search everywhere, and it was still fast. So I made a custom tool to say, hey, only look in this area. And then I went and saw it the other day, and they actually I don't know if they saw what I did or what, but they've incorporated that now where you can say only search in this area. It's crazy fast. And it's so much easier to use, and it does the looping for you, right? So you don't have to do any of this stuff. I highly recommend.
Okay, and find text, is that the build? There's a built-in thing in Autohotkey that I looked at. It wasn't called that. It was like image search or something, but find text is different.
Find text, what's really cool about it is like what I'm talking about, and returns an object if you're familiar with objects at all. But it also, you don't have to save the image. You get a binary value, with alphanumerics in it, and that can be stored in your file, and you don't have to have files saved on your computer, which just to me is a hassle. And it allows a little bit of, compared to the image search, it allows for a little bit of flexibility in the colors, if you understand what I mean. Like the image doesn't have to be
you can range a little bit, yeah.
So it's a very powerful tool. It's amazing. The only thing I'd say is, like, because I wrote Automate My Task, which is great, but it right now, at least the public version I have released, doesn't allow you to say, hey, if you don't find the image, don't do anything. And clearly you need that, and find text can just keep looking and not, wait until you find it and then react to it or whatever.
So you mentioned two things: find text, and then a version that you called the Shin version.
I put it in I think I put it in both. Spanova is an Autohotkey channel. The guy is called Shin, but his channel name is Spanova. I don't know. But I put the links in
Great.
the Zoom chat, and I think here, but
that was what I was going to ask, how I learn about those two things.
Yeah. And Shin added, at first he didn't have it part of it, but then he went back and added the ability to, after you find the image, to click it, right? And that was actually the other thing that I didn't like about find text initially, was you couldn't click it. You could get the results of where it was and then do some math and send your mouse click to it. But I'm like, why isn't that part of it? And so I created Automate My Task, which again, it allows you to do that, to click it or send text to it, whatever. Well, find text I went back a while ago and saw, now you can actually click the coordinates once you find it, which is very, very helpful.
And is Shin a version of fixed text, or is it entirely a different set
of
stuff?
So the Shin version, which is from the Spanova channel, is completely different. And like I said, it's using your, I wish Isaias was here because he could explain it better. Because I was kind of sitting in the background during the call with him of like, I didn't even understand what he's doing. Because he's doing gaming stuff and automating, looking for images, right? But it uses your GPU instead of your CPU. And for whatever reason, it's much faster of an approach.
Well, these sound very worthwhile, and I just want to make sure I found the best ways to get them and learn them.
Well, and that's the thing is, to me, honestly, the correct answer to say to that is, it's what makes sense to you, right? It's because all of them you can get to work. Any of the approaches, even the one you have here, right? This is where it comes up a lot. We'll see people say, Autohotkey's so slow, and then we'll start looking at it, and often it's a loop within a loop within a loop. And you're like, this is actually nested and running way more than it has to, which comes up a lot. And it's fine. It's I've done it too. I've been like, this is slower than I expected, and then I didn't realize I was looping over it more than I had to.
How slow are things like the mouse click? It's slightly nice in that the user gets to see it working, which is always satisfying. But is that slower than clicking without seeing the cursor move there?
I don't think there's any speed difference in
it. It's nice to see it working for the person.
Well, and just remember, so is it, let me finish up on that. A control click, the great thing about it is it doesn't matter if it'll work, it doesn't get interrupted with human behavior and doing stuff, right? And you can send stuff, which is Ace and I have been doing just the other day. without even activating the window. It's very cool.
Right.
Yeah,
But not all
unfortunately,
things.
yeah, I don't have control elements.
Now, I don't
Still
know
try
if
it,
you
though.
guys. I'm not. I'm sorry. I have to step out for a second,
Well,
and I
you're
don't know if you.
excused.
Right. If you guys already mentioned this, or if you have a way to do this, because I found myself trying to automate a program like this, which unfortunately for me, when you go and use Windows Pi, none of the windows had identifiable classes. So whenever I opened something of a tool like address book, the thing would still say the same title, and the class NN was not actually something really identifiable, right? So I couldn't really see which window was there. But, and this is the interesting thing, if in your program you have a way to identify the open window instead of searching for an image, and by this, I'm not really talking about the title or whatever, either controls that exist in that window. If you can actually get a control that exists in it, let me share a little bit of an example of what I'm talking about. Or the text that the Windows has. For example, in this case, notice that the visible text says address book right there. You see that? So I could identify that the address book was opened because I could get that from the text of the main program, is what I'm trying to get at. In my case, part of my code, what I did, let me share something. Here, I do get this line here, which is something that I actually, let me see something. Oh, probably I don't know if you know this particular command, control get visible. And actually you can use control get in general. In version 1, it's a little bit different than version 2. In version 1 would be control get, and then comma visible, like that. And Autohotkey version 2 is just like one function. Now, even if the window title does not change, or even if the mouse position or other things don't change, you can actually check if there is a specific control visible at that moment with control get visible. And if it is, then go ahead and perform whatever action. So in my case, what I'm doing is I start a loop and I check whether that control is visible. And once it's visible, I break out of the loop, which effectively is kind of like waiting for that control to exist or be visible, because if that is not visible, then I'd never break out of the loop and I just stay there. You know what I mean? So
Just
probably instead of,
remote,
I'm sorry.
he's on a remote environment, so he's not seeing any of the windows.
So you cannot get, oh, okay. So
I'm going.
But it's a good lesson for people to know. Right?
in general, if that is possible for you, you can do it. But if it is definitely because in my case, I have this kind of I have this, but you should try and verify if the Citrix machine window itself, if it actually notifies of anything that you can help to identify where you are. Because right now, I'm outside of the environment, and notice that it says, the virtual machine box here. Probably I could get it might happen that I get some identifiable information if it is possible, because virtual machines also get some other data out. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
When I used Knox, I was surprised. Jackie showed me that you can actually get a little bit of information. It's not just a blank screen, right?
Right. Which is basically what I'm trying to say. Even though in your situation it's not applicable what I was just mentioning, but at least try to get with Windows Pi on that Citrix window and see if you get any type of information out of it.
Now, Isaiah, can you also, just because I gave the short version, but can you do a better job explaining in Shin's version where he's using the GPU, why that's faster? I understand he uses the GPU.
And then actually, if you are searching for the fastest speed, I would definitely suggest using that particular library, because what it does is that it uses DirectX to access the images. So there's two components in Windows systems. The operating system, you have the GDI library. The GDI library is a section of functions that allow you to draw and get information about the screen. And the DirectX functions. And those DirectX functions talk directly to your graphics card. Okay? So the Shin's library uses DirectX functions to see what is on the screen, which is extremely fast because you're never using the processor to get the information, which is the case with GDI. The GDI actually passes through the processor interface before actually talking to the graphics card. And that's the reason why it's a little bit slower than DirectX. In general, you wouldn't notice the difference. And I'm not really sure how image search uses. I think image search uses the GDI library and not the DirectX. But again, the difference in speed usually is not noticeable in the case of what you're trying to do. But if you're searching for images, I guarantee DirectX would be way faster than the GDI approach. That's for sure. So I would definitely take a look at that library and try to use it to find stuff, because in that you can search for the whole image. You see the arrow that you're looking for? Instead of looking for pixels, individual pixels, you can search for the whole image. And the Shin library is really fast at it.
So that might be faster than the pixel method.
I would, in my opinion, that's what would be true.
And just to clarify, you're talking about the find text that Joe was mentioning, or what?
No,
what
no. So we're talking about a different class. Do you have the URL, Joe, or should?
Yeah,
it should be in the class
/Shin.
Oh, the Shin thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I'm going to spend the time, Shin is the best performer. Find text might be easier and more functions.
Well, find text is not exactly for what you're looking for, but you can tweak it for that. Of those two options, I would go with Shin's image. And the way how he did it is really easy to grasp. You just have to load an image and use a function that says search image, and it would find it for you. And it would just return the pixels. So it is not hard to wrap your head around it, because the way how he created the class is really easy to use. So if you're going to spend time, I think that would be time well spent with that particular library.
A question about an entirely different thing I worked on with frustration in the past. Maybe Shin's would do it. I was looking for text that appeared in different colors, which changed depending on the color of the background. Is there a way?
In that one, then the find text would be better, you see, because the find text grabs the image and converts it to zeros and ones. So it doesn't care what color it is at, it would find the text anyways.
It kind of flattens it down to a dark and light. And that way it's like, as I was saying, it's a little more flexible in the variations of stuff.
So even if a word changed its color in the middle of the word because of the background, it would still work.
It would still work because it's not looking at colors. It's actually just looking at zeros and ones. The 0 is where there is no text, and the 1 is where the text is at. So it will look at the outline of the text without information about the color.
And again,
honestly, both these libraries are going to be so fast. You don't over concern yourself with the speed. The stuff you were doing here was slow just because of the looping you were doing.
I see.
It's so fast. Like when you narrow the range, it's crazy fast.
Right. And let me just say this. You always have to use the right tool for the right problem. So if you're looking for text, don't use an image search. It's not going to work that well. Use the find text. Now, if you're looking for an image, which is an arrow, then go ahead and use the image search because it's an image. And in both cases, if you can narrow the search, not to the whole screen, but just a section of the screen, it would yield extremely fast results on both.
Can I have a quick question on what you last said, Isaiah? In version 1, how to find the alternative text or the visible text. You showed version 2. Can you just show the syntax for version 1?
So that was for
The control,
finding the control.
Yes, the text, the visible text.
You
On
can
a
use
page.
the win-get-text function. Is in version 1, it is called win-get-text.
So
And you just give it a title for a window, and it would return all the text for that particular window.
and then they can
Make
see
sure
if-
that you have detect hidden windows on,
yes,
because some windows will have hidden text.
and then
have
you
to have
look
that
for
on.
if there's a particular string present in that text to detect whether it's the right
Exactly.
window.
That's one way to identify some windows, because sometimes just the title is not enough. Yeah.
And I've got the same problem, so thank you. I've been sleepless nights sorting things out. Again, talking to you guys, hours of fun. Thank you.
Well, I do want to clarify something that Isaiah said, because it's very unfortunate of how, and I forget the author's name of find text, but you would think find text is for finding text, but it's actually really it's looking for images. I mean, the image can be a text, right?
Okay.
And it has OCR built into it where you could actually recognize letters and stuff. It's a crazy advanced
Okay,
class.
so it is actually converting a raster image into zeros and ones, right? Is that what
Yeah,
it's doing?
it's still yeah.
And if the image is text, then it just goes ahead and grabs the outline of the text as zeros and ones.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So that's I use it for whatever. I don't think of it as an image, even though I use find text.
Okay.
Often I look for words, but the point is like.
Oh, it could be the arrow, and then it doesn't matter what the color of the arrow is. Then
Right.
So yeah. In that case, if you are interested in the colors, then I'm not really sure if find text would find it, but
It depends on the colors in the background and how
Right.
And there's some flexibility with which it's not documented well at all, but you can drag a thing to say how much of a contrast and whatever. Let me.
Okay.
No, I don't have a hotkey for it because it launches automate my task. But it's a very powerful. And what's really cool is you can find multiple images, multiple of the same thing on the screen and get an index
At the
of
same
which
time,
one you
right.
want. Right? Which
awesome,
it's very powerful.
awesome.
I love it in the sense that, like I said, you don't have to save a file, which I don't know why it annoys me so much, but it allows me to keep everything, I guess, self-contained in the script.
Right.
But again, also, anytime you're doing stuff with images, and I know Isaiah and I talk a lot about this, for the love of God, don't think you're going to pass that to somebody else on another computer and it's going to work.
And it's going to work. Yeah, that's the only drawback of searching images on a screen. They are defined by which screen you actually created with the image with. That's all.
And what we realized with Isaiah's project that he kind of glanced at, we got 3 minutes left, is the tool that we keep opening up, we can't interact with it very well, but it always opens in the same spots. And we're like, okay, here's where it's going to be on one computer. This is where I don't love it, but we could do image search on it because it's going to be very reliable.
Right. In my case, and notice that, I'm just sharing right now the screen again. Notice that line 24, I'm actually getting the pixel in a particular location. And if it is not what I'm expecting, it just sleeps. It's just waiting for that pixel. And the reason for that is because that pixel is in that spot for sure, because the window always show up in there. Those are ways to identify stuff. In your case, sadly, the thing moves around, which is what makes it a little bit more complex. But if there is a way for you to make sure that, when the window opens, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the title icon on the left or something else. It can be anything that is always in the same spot, even the task, the scroll bar, whatever it is. If it is in the same spot, you can actually do this and it would work just fine and dandy. That's all.
Can't you set the size of the window and say, well, in order to do this function, I'm going to change the size of the window with a win move?
If it is in his case, maybe. In my case, I can't.
Okay. No.
Yeah,
you can say win move, resize the window, and then
Yes.
every
Yes.
time where it's going to be.
which is controlling for variance. So
Or-
before
or
you
you can-
actually go ahead and check for it, you just control that everything is in specific.
Or you
state.
can check what screen size a user has and say, okay, he's using this size, therefore I'm going to use this image to map. If
Yeah.
he's using a different screen size, I'm going to use a different image.
In his case, it was just about that the location actually moved, even if the screen was exactly the same size.
Okay.
So in that particular instance, it didn't work out. But again, there's always, even if he doesn't spot it, I guarantee that a few months from now, you're going to see one place that you say, oh, that never moves. You will see. It just happens. But the problem is finding it is the annoying thing. So I think we're good on the time here. I think we're going to go to the heroes lesson soon, right?
Yep. We got to switch over. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.